Chapter 61. What is this? I was embarrassed by the white square window that suddenly appeared. I had no idea of such a quest because I did not attend a hunting competition, even in the normal mode. As soon as I was thinking about what to do, new letters were added to the white square window. Since this is the main quest of system, it will be accepted automatically in 5 seconds. System 5, System 4, System 3. At the fast declining countdown, I pressed refuse with no more thought. The white square window disappeared immediately, but instead, there's long time no see, princess. Red eyes were in place. Crazy. I managed to swallow the almost reflexively scream. His eyes shook like an earthquake. Just where in the world? It was only for a moment, when I was checking the system window, that I took my eyes off the crown prince. He came without a trace in that moment. The crown prince, who bent his upper body, with his arms folded across the table, smiled at me with a beastly look at his prey. A white tooth appeared through the red lips. It was a scene that was scarier than that I was suffocated. I meet the little son of the empire. I squeezed my trembling voice hard. It's hard to see your face. Speechless. In the meantime, the iron poison made your fever boil. Are you feeling better now? Instead of receiving my greetings, he said something else. It was a tone close to ridicule. It was true that I had been suffering for several days after I got a throat cut by him. I wanted to shoot him because I wasn't okay, but I was in a position where I thought my life is precious. Thanks to your concern, I've recovered completely. I answered, pulling the corners of his mouth desperately. Then the crown prince let out a blasphemy. If you had told me to come to visit you, I would have left everything behind and run. Speechless, I've been waiting for a few days, but I haven't heard anything from you. What? What? How come you make such a terrible bullshit? I shook my head frantically and shouted desperately for an insincere sound. How dare I tell the crown prince, who is in need of the empire, to come and see me? I'm really okay, your highness. Really. This is upsetting. I think I can do that much, knowing that we're going to be a lover in the future. Yes? I realized that what I was like to faint that I was like to faint this time. What I was like to faint this time. What it was. I realized what it was like to faint this time. What the hell is he talking about? I put aside my smiling face and barely opened my trembling lips and asked, Who? With who? Of course, you and me are. Princess. Kugong, I heard a thundering hallucination in my ear. The wedged crown prince walked around the table after he raised his upper body, and he flopped into the seat where Derek was sitting without stopping. I froze stiffly. He stared at me like that with his chin languished. You haven't forgotten your promise with me yet, have you, princess? What? I'm sure you'll explain in detail why, how, and why you came to like me the next time we meet. At the end, he recited all the lines he said while releasing me. Of course, you've prepared an answer, haven't you? Speechless. Come on, say it. The crown prince nodded and urged an explanation. At the same time, the brilliant blonde top began to shine. Favorability, 3%. It was only 3%. If you misbehave, you'll be decapitated by the knife he wielded, and you'll be overloaded with games. I felt as if my eyes were white as day. It's there's nothing to be ashamed of, so feel free to tell me, because there's no rat around anyway. As he said, there was no one within a 1 meter radius of the table. All were far away, just looking at the meeting between the Emperor's eldest son and the Duke's mad dog with excitement. Say it to me quickly. The Crown Prince hastened me once again. That's squeezing desperately for words to say. I shed tears of blood inside. Even if I was afraid of dying, why did I say such nonsense? No matter how much I thought of it, I couldn't think of anything to say. I've only had 2 encounters with him. Besides, the only good thing about him is that his hair color stands out, and people doesn't have it even after washing their eyes. Princess, the crown prince called me again. His voice had sunk quietly. I'm, I'm sorry. I closed my eyes tightly. Oh, I don't know anymore. I don't like crown prince anymore. What? One of the crown prince's eyebrows shot up. I was afraid when he would pull out his sword. I was thundering like a quick fire gun, like rock. I realized earlier that folding an inalienable love is a courtesy to the other person. Speechless, I'm so sorry for to trouble you with my one-sided feelings, Your Highness. I'm going to look for a more realistic person for my situation. I was completely distracted by the terror that struck me in my head. I was sorry then. I'm sorry. Mumbling at such a thing, I finished my presentation quite successfully without more stuttering. I'm sure everyone heard about it. I cried out loud while I was speaking. Originally, love changes. No matter how unruly the crown prince is, how could he hit and kill a princess who apologizes in front of all the nobles? No matter how groundless the game is, he wouldn't have said it as such a madman. But that was just my misunderstanding. Huh! The crown prince, who seemed to recall my words without saying anything for a long time, burst out laughing. You've got another one? Yes? Who's that bastard? Strong. Suddenly, he jumped up from his seat and pulled out the knife he was wearing on his waist. Indeed, he was a madman who wore a sword for combat at a hunting competition. This time, tell me who the bastard you whispered, that one mouthful of the raving. The red eyes glared at me. There was an eerie example at the tip of the knife, as if it were aimed at me at any moment. What the fuck is wrong with this game? I cried out. I'm not very patient, princess. Speechless. So you'd better answer quickly. Oh, I haven't someone to date yet. I replied reluctantly, sweating profusely. Favorability 4%. I think it was a very good answer because the favorability increased by 1%. But I wasn't happy at all. Unlike above his head, the crown prince wriggled his eyebrows anathema. Is the love that a princess says so easy and light? Yes. Afraid of getting caught again, I answered quickly. I usually fall in love quickly. That sounds like there's a better man in the empire than I am. Oh, it was true. Everything was fine except you. But for some reason, if I replied, I thought I'd be in big trouble. When I was glancing over his head and couldn't say anything, the crown prince overpowered my chest. With the hand holding the sword. That's too much, princess. I've been looking forward to this day, staying up all night. The longsword was in the longsword was in danger as if it were about to cut his face. It was when I was staring at him as if he were a madman. Now, what are you doing, your highness? Someone appeared as if to be a savior. Brother. A shield that had left coldly arrived. There seemed to be a halo behind Derek, walking this way. Why didn't you come soon? I hid behind him in a hurry, muttering my inner cry. Oh, isn't this the little Duke? I tried to stare at myself strangely, but I pretended to not know it later. Derek was unexpectedly hostile to the Crown Prince. I asked you what you're doing, your highness. I was having a close conversation with your sister. With the sword out? Oh, this? The Crown Prince smiled sideways at the sword he had taken out. It's nothing. Maybe it's because it's near the forest, but the flybugs keep buzzing around. Then he swung a couple of swords in the air as if he were catching a fly and quickly put them in the lock. If you looked at it from a distance, he might look like a pretty cool stunt, but in my eyes, he was just a maniac. Did Penelope do any disrespect to you? I wasn't the only one who thought so, but Derek looked at him coolly and asked, Excuse me. The Crown Prince seemed to be agonizing over his chin and then clapped his hands and chattered, That's right, she had done a very big disrespect. End of chapter 61. Chapter 62. What? I was so embarrassed that I tried to shout out without even realizing it, but I quickly shut up. You're the one who came and touched someone who was just stay still. Upon hearing the princess answer, Derek immediately turned his head toward me. The cold blue snow nailed me this time. Suddenly his head listened. Favorability minus 1%. Favorability 25%. I was frustrated with the falling favorability, shaking my head desperately and saying with a strong look of eyes, Oh no, I didn't do anything. The warning seemed to be a vivid reminder in my ears, saying it would not end up in a jail only. Derek stared sharply at me, shaking my head, and soon turned his head with a light sigh that only I could hear. My sister is still in a state of insanity, not long after she woke up from her bed, Your Highness. Speechless, I don't know what kind of baptism she have done, but please show her your generosity. The princess deceived me. Deceive? I opened my mouth wide. Stories about me that only I didn't know were coming from his mouth. She didn't keep her innermost promises, and she trampled and played with my mind without hesitation. I was in a hurry to correct his groundless. What does that mean? But Derek was one step ahead. His eyes were already frowned upon. The Crown Prince shrugged at the sight. Don't you remember? I still remember very clear about what the princess whispered to me in the maze garden. Your Highness. I didn't know, but I interrupted him with a shriek. The Duke and the two brothers only thought I had been decapitated by the Mad Prince for no reason, because they had no idea that I had said such nonsense. Oh no, you son of a bitch, I'm gonna have to hurry up and drag him to a deserted place and knock him out to the crossbow. I was so determined to spit out. I think I made a slip of the tongue a little while ago. I just need to talk to your highness. So let's us get moving for a momentarily. For a moment, I couldn't stand the absurd remarks anymore, and I was about to drag him and disappear in front of Derek. Cool. Ah. A burst of loud roaring sounds and the tearing scream rang out. Everyone's eyes, including myself, turned to that direction. What is that? A huge balloon was popping up in the corner of the banquet high enough, above two-story building. In modern life, a giant rubber duck came to mind as it passed by the lake. Coo, coo. At that moment, the balloon howled loudly. I realized only then, oh my god, the rare animal that was pulled out by a group of women from another country has become huge. At that moment, the balloon monster screeched and wriggled. Coo, coo. Ah, save me. People around it screamed and scattered to avoid the monster like a big chicken feet. The look on the cry that I thought was cute now felt eerie. Ah, at that time, one of lady who was running away from the sudden appearance of the beast fell down. Coo. Ah, when the shadow of a balloon monster resembling chicken feet sank down her stomach. Shit. Derek, who was next to me, bounces forward like a curse word. Oh, he's gone. He pulled out his sword from his waist as he ran and quickly reached where the beast was, and he put a knife into the bottom of the huge chicken foot that was trying to crush the woman. Coo. Before the foot of the beast trampled on the ground, it narrowly stopped. Ping! The knife bent dangerously, as if it would break soon. A woman who's Derek's a woman who's lying face down. But it was enough for Derek to grab the woman's arm and drag her out. The lady who was in his arms seemed to have fallen into confusion. Shortly after they got out, Derek's knife was completely crushed on the foot of the beast, and the sound that overwhelming. Guards, call guards. Cool, cool. The monster was raging more wildly than before. The outer hall that was quiet a while ago became completely mess. The crown prince is there. In the midst of the chaos, I could clearly hear someone shouting loudly. I looked there with my eyes wide open. Kill him. A group of black-clad women who first pulled out the old beast earlier was pointing to the crown prince and chanting a spell. Then the rampage turned like a lie. Crazy. To the side where I and the crown prince stand side by side, it wasn't this kind of game. Why did the monster suddenly appear in the love simulation game? I was dumbfounded by this absurd development, so I was just stand and hardened. Cool, cool. In the meantime, a new order has been given. I rolled my foot on the ground. It was a gesture like a bullfight that would come at any moment. To your brother, that woman seems to be more important than his only sister. It was then the crown prince, who was standing calmly because of me, even though the horse was running wild, suddenly stepped forward and talked. If I were him, I would never have left you alone with a guy who almost killed my sister. Even more so in this dangerous situation. Speechless. What if I get caught up in the conversation a little before and throw you as a bait and run away? I froze at the words. If he really does, I'll be crushed to death by this beast. As soon as he stood firm without me answering anything, the crown prince grinned. I'm joking, so relax your face, princess, or else everyone will see. That's, it's the seed I sowed, so I'll reap it. I was about to ask him again if that's a joke. He shot forward, pulling a knife like Derek just before. Coo, coo. Just in time, the beast also stopped stamping and began to rush. Do, 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 do. The ground vibrated. The crown prince, who was running at a tremendous speed, leaped into the air just before the battle with the beast. Then he put the sword in the big eye of the beast. Coo, wook. The beast ran wild with a painful groan. The crown prince's body fluttered like a sheet of paper in the air. Well, he's going to fall. But such worries were also brief. Holding the sword with one hand, he managed to balance it, and soon, aka! With the sword down, he fell hard down. When his feet finally touched the floor, the movement of the beast stopped, and coo! The huge new beast collapsed just like that, with only the top of the head barely glued together and broken in two. The image of the balloon monster flowing down the floor was really like chewing gum. Oh, I blinked blankly. Everything happened in a flash. The crown prince, who finished the monster in less than a few minutes, looked somewhere with bright red eyes. That's strange. It was a group of black clouds that controlled the beast. They had already gathered in a circle and were wary of everything, each with a shiny crystal ball, so that the nobles with weapons can't approach. Derek, who was standing with a broken knife near them, could not approach them hastily, perhaps because it worked better than expected. The woman who had been rescued from the beast and held it in her arms had already disappeared, and the prince spent the whole time watching the surroundings. Why is it so quiet here? It's about time the guards come. The words were whispered by the nobles who had fled far away. Come to think of it, it was true. If it was this much of a fuss, they had no choice but to know that the guards was going to be called. But it was strange, there's still no sign of it. Moreover, if the support forces were slow, this was the perfect time to slaughter people. Except for a few young men like Derek and the Crown Prince, who had unusually brought weapons to the banquet hall, they were all empty bodies. If you thought this is over, you're mistaken. Callisto Regulus. At that time, one of the groups dressed in black screamed. It was a husky voice. I thought it was a woman in her small frame, but I guess it wasn't all. It wasn't at all. You will never survive here today. These are the remnants of the Layla New Kingdom. Oh, I didn't know you'd use a set of girls disguised in a Satina costume. Sitina was a small desert country far from the Inca Empire. The Crown Prince identified them. Whether what whether what he said was true, a group of black clothes faltered. I don't know, but it seemed to be one of the losing countries. It wouldn't have been easy to get through the security check. Who help you? You must never be an emperor if you are such a wicked man. When the answer to the question came back completely out of the question, the Crown Prince tilted his head. Why? He really didn't seem to know why he shouldn't be the emperor. The sight must be my the sight must have irritated the crowd of black clothes. Tens of thousands of lives and blood has lost because of you, who started the war. Aren't you afraid of heaven, you son of a bitch? Well, I don't think that's what you guys who used humans as food and subject for the experiment should say. Shut up. And recently you kidnapped and abused children with magical powers. That's all commanded by the great goddess Layla. And only when the filthy people who are against God disappear will the true emperor. It was a glaring remark because I heard it from Winter the other day. Some argue that the true emperor of God's choice will be born only when all the sorcerers disappear. Then what Winter said about was this group? The Crown Prince asked back in a derisive voice while closely watching the black clothes. If so, what do you think of the Gers clans who are grateful on what I gave, destroyed your unauthorized possessions? How dare those little bastards make our holy kingdom? Well, that's enough of an answer. Suddenly the questioner raised his hand and stopped the conversation without hearing the answer. You'll all be slaughtered in my hands like that beast you brought with you today. Sroom. With his eerie words, he held his big sword close, flashing red eyes. End of chapter 62. The Crown Prince gave a chilling gush. I guess war heroes aren't just words. He was ready to shoot out and wipe out a swarm of black clothes like he did when he was cleaning up the beast. I knew he was a madman, but he seemed more dangerous and great than I thought. With a little bit of glances, he looked at the ship he was holding. He looked at the ship was doing. You're the one who's going to be slaughtered. At that time, because of some courage he had, a black-clad man talked meanly. Look at the back. Sizzling. As soon as he lifted his finger and pointed, a clear noise rang out. What's that? Someone shouted in dismay. The sound drew everyone in the hall to the point of the black clothing. The head that barely attached and the eyes that was splitting because of what the crown prince has done before was increasing. Jig, yuck. The beast which had been increasing for a long time was finally completely separated. Coo. Two beasts have sprung up. How is it? That beautiful life force God has given you. The black clothes giggled at the shocked people. No matter how much you cut and cut, it's no use. It's just going to stretch. Oh, I've never seen such a beast in my life. When the crown prince killed the beast, the relieved people screamed again and became confused. The only entrance was crowded with people, but no one could escape outside. This is because people who bounce off the entrance continue to bounce as if they are blocked by an invisible membrane. In addition, the thick walls of the bushes tightly wrapped around the garden were high and slippery, making it extremely difficult for anyone to climb. In the meantime, the two beasts began to walk after the fleeing people. Q. Ah! Giant chicken feet trampled on the soft lawn and ran again. The Crown Prince and Derek exchanged glances silently. Each took one and ran away. Other aristocrats armed with weapons also attacked the beast. Ranald was also included in the pack, but it didn't work. The more the beast was cut, the more it was constantly. There were a number of injuries. Ah, Q. The banquet hall where the dormant rest came was in chaos again. What the hell is going on here? I looked around with bewildered eyes. I don't know where the Duke went, and everyone was running away as if they were trying to avoid the beast they were chasing. In the middle of the mess. In the middle of the mess, I couldn't feel the reality as if I was the only one floating in the ocean. Between all the screams and groans, I found someone standing alone like me. Winter, the question of how He was here. The wizard was unheard of. Ah, save me. It was because there was a demon running over a man near him. Why don't you avoid it? At the same time as I thought, I recognized his one hand in his arms. He was pondering now. I don't know whether to take out the cane in his arms or not. At the risk of being found to be a wizard, whether to use high altitude magic to save people or not. How is that possible? There was nothing good for him if he revealed himself. Moreover, even the cause of this turmoil is the work of the crowd of wizards. How good is it? But do you need to take such risk for others? His hesitation made me feel a little strange. From the top of the white rabbit, I remembered the children wearing masks. I thought it would be better not to reveal that he was just a wizard until the end. But contrary to my opinion, Winter seemed to have made a decision. As soon as his hand in his arms was out, about to slip out, Penelope, I heard a violent cry for me. Maybe I heard my name, but suddenly I made eye contact with Winter. The blue pupil that found me grew slowly. I eager to see him, only then did I realize something was wrong. Coo, coo. I turned my head and I saw a balloon monster rushing toward me. Coo, goo, goo, goo. The ground vibrates. Penelope, run. I saw Reynald running along the beast and shouting at me with blood close to his neck. After that, Derek and Callisto, who were dealing with the beast, turned this way with pale faces. It all passed slowly, like slow motion. It was that moment. My eyes suddenly brightened. System, main quest. Let's be the queen of hunting offers. Will you proceed with the quest? Reward. All male protagonists have a favorability of plus 5% fame, plus 50. Accept or decline. The quest window, which I once refused, came up again. Ha! I was dumbfounded and burst out laughing. In the end, it had to be this way. As soon as I had a cynical idea, a new letter came up. System, this is the main quest and will be accepted automatically in 5 seconds. System 5, System 4. Even when playing the game, the main quest was a bit forced to proceed through the episode, but you have to go through this in reality. You've become indescribably dirty. If this was just a real game, and I was playing beyond the screen, it would have been a simple end with a defeat all the evil. Notice after acceptance. In the simulation games, played by illustration scenes and dialogue choices, there was a limit to implementing such violent movements. But again, this was not a game screen, but a reality. Reality. Cool. I had no other option. The monster was just around the corner, and all the rewards and prizes were watching me. Accept. I managed to accept the quest just before the monster trampled on me. And at the same time, the body moved on its own. The crossbow, which was carried behind the back by the right hand at a tremendous speed, was pulled forward. After supporting the tiller with my left hand, I immediately pulled the trigger. Boom! Tang! Kui! I heard something banging on the bottom of my heart feet with bumps. The horse that was about to step on me fell back in an instant and convulsed. Q. It was not long before the beast drooped. Even its rubber-like transparent body melts down like melted ice cream. What is that? A group of black-clad men were agitated at the sight of the fallen beast. Not only that, I could feel everyone, including the men, looking at me with a puzzled look, forgetting that it was an emergency. Hey, what's this? Of course, I was the most embarrassed among them. Because I was so distracted, I completely forgot that I was carrying a crossbow. Princess Eckert has made a beast. When the shock slowly begins to creep in everyone's eyes, phew, my body moved again. It was by no means arbitrary. In a hurry, I turned down on one knee and aimed at the crossbow again. Subsequently, cheek, tongue, key. Near the glade, a beast trying to hit a man collapsed and convulsed. It could not be confirmed if it melted again this time. This is because my body quickly rose turned to the other side and shot the crossbow again. Tong, coo, coo. Every shot was surprisingly right on the inside. The monsters chasing people began to fall one by one. In the meantime, I was constantly swayed by the game system. Well, kill that bitch first. Come on. A group of black clothes pointed at me and shouted. The multiplied beasts scattered here and there began to come near me, only aiming at me. This piece is better than I think. I didn't have to turn around in a lot. Cheek, tongue, 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 tongue. How crazy did someone shoot the crossbow like that? At the end of the last two that were running at the same time, I annihilated all the monsters. I guess it wasn't as much multiplication as I thought. In addition, each object was so large that it was easy to hit. Oh my gosh, breathing heavily, I lowered the crossbow I was holding. Both arms trembled uncontrollably. I didn't hold it properly even when I was practicing at home. I felt like dying to hold it by force for so long. Is this a quest? It's torture. I looked around, swallowing up a peep of tears. Before I knew it, there was a silence in the banquet hall. Everyone was staring at me blankly, even the remnants of a new country that has committed all this evil. Haha, you've become a superstar chimpanzee again this year. I laughed with resignation. In a fitful wind, people shuddered, and then I heard a clap of hands somewhere. Clap, clap, clap. It was led by a thunderous applause. My God, Princess Eckhart saved us. Oh my God, what would have really happened without the princess? Thank you very much, Princess. You're savior. You're a savior. You're our savior. The pouring cheers just stunned me. It was then. System, main quest. Let's be the queen of hunting offers. First, save the neighbors from danger. Quest successful. System reward earned. All male favorability plus 5%. Fame plus 50. Fame total 80. My reputation, which I don't need, has risen vertically. Oh, I wish you could give me a lot. However, it was not bad to pay for all the hardships. The prince's favorability, which was more dangerous than anyone else, has gone a long way from death. Although I was exhausted from being swayed by the system, I was quite generous. I could see the white letters floating in their heads, even among the crowd around me. Favorability 27%, starting with Reynold, who ran all the way to the nearest place. Favorability 30%, favorability 9%. Derek and Callisto, favorability 20%. To the winter, unlike other extras who thanked me and praised me until their mouth was watering, the men just stared blankly at me and didn't readily approach me. If the female lead was like this in normal mode, their eyes would have become hearts and run straight. Come to think of it, not only the brothers but none of the male leads would protect me. But I didn't feel particularly sad or tired. I don't need it. Favorability 60%. I've already had a man who's confirmed my end. End of chapter 63. Chapter 64. Why are all kinds of support forces deployed only after the emergency situation is over? I watched the guards flocked through the only entrance. There were 3 or 4 people in golden robes mixed among the silver-colored packers. It was the wizards belonging to the palace. They quickly identified the half-melted object and confirmed its death. They're vulnerable to magic attacks, so they're rarely used for combat purposes. Listening to the end of the story, it seemed that they brought an infinite variety of beast breeding beast breeding objects that were specialized in arms force, aiming for the participation of wizards in the hunting competition. Few aristocrats showed up with weapons like me in a banquet hall dressed elegantly. More and more people with magical weapons have been inspected once. This is because the pride of the nobles who participate in hunting competitions every year is to win the championship with the senses and skills of a natural hunter without the help of magic. Therefore, my crossbow attack, which is possessed by a forewarning spell, was the only thing that worked. It was quite a convincing development whether the game had such a story or not, but how the hell did Winter get involved? Again, I had such a question, but there was no room to find out. The rebellion of the prophets and the remnants of the country, with all the efforts to control the monster, was not stronger than expected. The rats trapped in the jar were soon overpowered. Let go of me! Let go of me! Aren't you afraid of God, you bastards? Because I wondered what kind of people they were. I looked a little far away. The crown prince grudged. The crown prince grudged off each of the clothes, cloths, covering the faces of those who were struggling. Do you think it's over, Callisto Regulus? The head was an old woman, as expected. It then revealed the faces of the other 5. Surprisingly, there were 3 skinny girls and 2 young boys about 10 years old. God is watching your cruelty. We must tear your limbs apart and reclaim the trampled new country. The old woman cursed the crown prince to the end. Despite the eerie words, Callisto remained grave. Rather, he waved his hands with a rather bored look. The old woman and the women, the head of the village, were dragged out by the knights. All that was left was 2 children who had a sulk. The knights tried to drag them away, but the crown prince raised his hand and stopped them for a while. He looked back at the guard and asked, "Why is it so late?" Well, that's a powerful restraining spell hung around the banquet hall. I rushed to summon the wizards to release the formula, but it was so powerful that the captain of the guard was so sorry that he couldn't speak. The crown prince raised his chin unconcernedly. This is what they did. As if to notice the reason, the crown princess ignored the enemy plan, directed at the remaining children. Now that all their identities have been revealed, normal children should have been frightened. However, the children were not agitated by the attention they focused on. The empty people staring into the air was a little creepy. Search the body. At the order of Callisto, knights dragged off the clothes the children were wearing. After a while, the knight searching for their bodies shouted, "We found a mana amplification device." Under the children's ears were attached something like a small black square chip. If it's a mana amplification device, are they a wizard? The palace wizards carefully ripped the chips out of the children's bodies. The two children who did not rebel until then fell down like a doll with a rope as soon as the device fell off. I flinched in surprise at the sight. However, the crown prince had no mercy to a child. However, the crown prince had no mercy to a child. Take them to the underground prison. Yes, the faithful knights clenched the children by the collar. It was the moment when the shark was dragging its feet. Wait a minute. Someone popped out among the knights. It was none other than Winter who had scattered silver hair. What's going on, Marquis Verdandi? Your Highness, please leave these children to me. In a hurry, Winter, who stood in front of the children, bowed his head. The crown prince tilted his head. How come? It's clear that these children have been brainwashed through hypnosis for a long time and are unable to think normally. So, I can do brainwashing. It would be more helpful to recall the memory and identify the remnants than to just kill innocent victims as in the previous kidnapping at the Hill abduction case. Winter explained why he should take over the children's recruits in a calm tone, but I could easily notice how desperate he was now. He is a man who has been intimidatingly threatening a young girl to protect the young children from an anti-magical group. It's just different from what happened in the Hail, but the Crown Prince cut off Winter's suggestion like a knife. The attack on the banquet hall in the palace, those involved will carry out summary executions for any reason. But your highness, even my intentions are not reflected. It's too harsh to be treated the same as the main culprits when give a little generosity. Stop, go ahead and take them. As if he didn't want to hear more, the crown prince cut off his words and ordered. Winter looked at the children being dragged away with a stunned look. Why is he doing that? Suddenly such a question occurred to me. However, when I remembered the children who were gathered on the face with an animal mask, I couldn't despise him because of the excessive setting. By the time the knights began to drag the children through the crowd, I moved my body lightly to stand in front of it. I agree with the Marquis Verdandi. The low voice drew people's attention to me. Other than Winter and the Crown Prince, the rest of the male lead stairs were included in it. The blue eyes that glared towards me felt particularly stingy, as if it touched my skin. Stingy? Stingy. Derek's got the cool, stiff pose and Reynolds frowning as much as he was. I felt the pressure of don't step out and stay still, but I ignored it and opened my mouth. Leave the children to the Marquis, Your Highness. What? The Crown Prince wriggled his eyebrows, as if he had heard something he couldn't hear. He slowly opened his mouth, glancing upward over his blond hair, which began to blink little by little. There are clear signs of abuse, and it seems too much to be executed. And I pointed to the children who were held by the collar in the hands of the knights. The neck, which was clearly exposed by the stretched clothes, was full of bruises and scars. The crowd then opened their eyes and chatted, wondering if they recognized it. Sympathy toward the children began to boil. Ha! The crown prince smiled coldly, flashing his red eyes, as if it was very unpleasant for me to step forward. Since when did the princess come to talk about the country's masses? But I shot and killed them all. Can't I say this much? I looked around and asked. It was seen that the servants were cleaning up the remains of the melted demons throughout the banquet hall. It was embarrassing to say this myself, but the evidence of my tremendous performance was clear. The crown prince stared at me with his mouth shut at my question. You've got nothing to say. His head blinked dangerously. I quickly bowed my head and repeatedly forced myself to pretend to ask a favor. They're kids. I asked for your generosity, Your Highness. I didn't mean to help Winter. It's not even more like because I'm such a good person. It's just, being used as much as you want, thrown away like garbage and put to death. It was hard to sit idly by, so I did this this is not like me. I could feel the stinging gaze from the bedside before long. Seize and put them the wagons of the Marquis of Verdandi. The Crown Prince finally gave his consent in a disapproving voice. I looked up immediately and checked his favorability. Fortunately, nothing changed from 9%. At the same time, as relief, a white square window popped up in front of my eyes. System. Reputation has increased to plus 10. I didn't mean it, but my reputation rose. Looking at the system window with puzzled eyes, I didn't know that the princess was so compassionate. The crown prince was sarcastic to the most. I tried to give you a reward, but now I don't have to. Then he just walked past by me. Chuck, you little bastard, I don't need your reward. As I was gazing away at the prince, I soon felt strange. Favorability, 10%. The prince's favorability rose by 1%. Anyway, did this episode end safely? It was not a bad result as a result. Although it almost got dark due to the sudden appearance of the beast, the unexpected rise in the Crown Prince's favor, and in any case, the hunting competition was likely to cancel of the next day. Please just go like this, and please don't let the main quests or anything else come out. Even if it come out, I won't do it twice. Regardless of the discomfort that the body does not move on its own. This is really not something to do. As the crown prince disappeared and the tension eased, the whole body ached. I need to lie down right now, otherwise I'll die. Looking around, things seemed to be getting sorted out. There were some injured people carried on stretchers, but fortunately, there were no fatalities. I need to get to Emily as soon as possible. I don't know which side the cabana is on, but that didn't mean to wander around looking for the two brothers who had disappeared. I had to go outside to meet Emily because access to the banquet hall was strictly restricted except for guards due to the attack. Other aristocrats also gave brief testimony and confirmation to the guards and wizards and left the banquet hall one by one. It was also a moment when I walked around the crossbow to follow the current. Lady Penelope. End of chapter 64. Chapter 65. Someone called me. For some reason, I wasn't surprised because I thought it would be like this in the storyline. I slowly turned around. The Eve Festival, which began at sunset, was already painted with a dim darkness. Of all the broken lights by the beast, some light glimmered on the face of the man who called me. Favorability 20%. But I was able to distinguish the male leads even in the dark. Marquis. It was my first time calling Winter like this, so I felt very strange. I was talking down to you like that a while ago. Now that the masquerade was over, it was a big deal. While I was practicing my unspeakable, the Marquis Winter walked quickly and arrived in front of me. The color of his eyes is not unfamiliar to him, unlike his title. You helped me today. Thank you very much. He paid me a silent tribute. Well, I was expecting this. Now that I have quite a hard mode hit bar, I replied without a big deal. I didn't come out to help the Marquis, so you don't have to thank me. Smooth honorifics flowed out compared to the awkwardness I felt. That's right, but speechless, you've saved people by force, including me. He looked up and glanced at my hand, which had been lying gently. Following the gaze, my eyes slowly widened as I inadvertently lowered my head. It was only then that I noticed that my hands were shaking intermittently. I know I overstepped myself with this low body. I didn't have enough arm strength to shoot the crossbow, but it wasn't just because I was overdoing it was too much. I tried to pretend to be calm, but in fact, I was more scared of the situation than anyone else. The shadows of the huge chicken feet that were held high to crush me, and the countless monsters that ran toward me only. The body and hands that were moving frantically out of my control. As the spine chilling scenes rose again, my eyes closed without realizing it. I didn't show up as much as I could, but I held my trembling hands back and hid them. I'm sure anyone else would have do that. I don't care. No, Winter denied his desperate pretense of nothing. No one would have been as courageous as Lady, despite being such an easy-to-deal beast. He suddenly stopped talking and frowned at the burrow, like someone who's suffering from something. Do you feel guilty for hiding your magic and not doing anything? I didn't quite understand the plight of Winter. What's wrong with being selfish for your own safety? In addition, he did what he could. Just as I saved my life by leaving myself to the system and saving the lives of extras that the game had arranged. If each of us did the best we could do on the spot, that's it. I shrugged back casually. I could have done nothing without the crossbow and been chased by the beast. Speechless, Marquis also tried to save the children's lives as much as you could. I can stand in front of the prince because I'm scared. It was a bit funny because it was perfectly true, even though I said it out loud. I would have never happened to interrupt the prince's orders as before if Winter had not gone first, and I had never had a ball to shoot and kill. At that moment, the dark blue pupil, which was staring silently at me, giggling with a smile on my face, shook violently. And favorability 24%. His head twinkled. 4%. I was belatedly awakened by a fairly large increase. You'll turn around when you see the female lead soon. So it's no good to keep bumping into him. The laughter that had been in my mouth died. Thank you for the compliment. Then I'll go first. I hastened to finish the conversation. In fact, I was too tired to stand any longer. So the only one who thanked me for saving their lives is Winter only. Since he is a normal male lead, I know he is not. But he still has lingering feelings. I was about to turn around with a short bow. Lady, the hot palm grasped at the arm in a hurry. I turned my head angrily, and Winter stared at me with an unknown look. The reply you sent was well received. The lips that had been hesitating for a moment opened, and he whispered in a small voice so that only I could hear them. May I, too, reciprocate your help today? It was then. Penelope, Someone from the side called me in a stiff voice. Favorability, 27%. His darkness around him more likable than he looked. However, I could immediately tell who he was by hearing his uncomfortable voice. Excuse me, what are you doing to my sister? Reynold. Indeed, this time, Reynold appeared as if it was the day of the gathering of the male owners. I thought you were going first. He was a man who showed up at an amazing moment when he left cold-heartedly even when I grabbed his sleeve. I was embarrassed by the way pink hair came out with frowned eyes and stared at the empty space. Come on, Penelope. Ranald called me on the edge of his guard against Winter holding my arm, but Winter wouldn't let go of my arm. Ranald's spirit turned sour at the sight. Why do I feel a sense of deja vu? As such incident occurred to me at the field a while ago. I was caught between them and looked around and soon shook Winter's arm gently. Marquis. Unlike the other male leads, Winter was a guy with power was not too strong for me. It's not too strong just like I did with Derek and Eclise, as I can just use full strength. But I didn't want to go that far with the only male lead who was courteous to me. Marquis, nevertheless, Winter remained stay still. I looked up at him with wide eyes. Reynolds' voice grew crooked. She told you to let go. Speechless. Huh? Don't let go. After all, when Reynold, a hot-tempered man, gritted his teeth and strove to catch me, finally, the arms that were caught were loosened. He seemed to give up, as his touch had no strength. As soon as Winter's bondage was lifted, this time Reynold snatched me away as if he had been waiting, and he pushed me hard behind the lantern as if he were hiding me. Now he had nothing more to distance himself from, and with a twisted smile he was sarcastic at Winter. Excuse me, Marcus, you're trying to do something about a naive kid who doesn't know anything, but think about your age, huh? I opened my mouth in consternation at his rude remarks. I unwittingly raised my fist and slapped him on the shoulder. Are you crazy? It's not like that. You keep quiet. You're really not afraid of anything. Reynolds shouted at my response. My annoyance soared to the top of my head. If you're gonna say that, let go of this. I'm going alone. After reciting it coldly, he twisted his caught hand wildly and shouted hurriedly, wondering if he was embarrassed. Anyway, you don't have a choice. Don't get near him anymore. You're really. Oh, let's go, let's go. Oh no, I don't like your temper. As if he were going to go, he went ahead of me and complained. Who's the one to say that? I was suddenly filled with swear words because I weren't there because of his temper, but it fell down. This is because I still felt a keen eye on the back of my head. Toddle, half taken away by Reynold, I glanced back. Winter, who was still standing there and looking at me, flapped his lips when his eyes met with me. I look forward to your reply, lady. I was surprised by his persistence when I looked at him with big eyes. Suddenly, my steps stopped sharply, and I heard a mountain breaking sound coming from the front. Oh, come on, there will be no answer, so don't waste your time. No, I'm fine. He hurriedly cut off Reynolds' words and gave me the answer with his own mouth. Fortunately, the mouth of fear was closed. Perhaps because of the word of denial, I told the information guild that I would not receive an answer to return. I laughed again and again, laughing at what I had said to him before. When I put on a mask, I couldn't even smile, and I thought again, looking at the blue pupils shaking once again. Favorability, 26%. As I have done before, I'm surprised that I'm getting a boost from the firm refusal. It was when I was dragged out of the outdoor concert hall by Reynold. Lady, Penelope, Emily, and the Duke, who were nervously standing near the entrance, saw me and ran with joy. Are you all right, lady? Are you hurt anywhere? Huh? They took turns looking into my body. I replied with a puzzled look at the unexpected hospitality. I'm fine. I'm not hurt anywhere. You don't have to worry. Maybe it's because you didn't see this girl wiped out. Reynold, who was trying to be sarcastic as a habit, immediately shut his mouth at the sight of the Duke glaring his eyes. The expression of the disgruntled frown was a little worth seeing. I turned my head and looked at the Duke again. Is father okay? What about Emily? I had to stop by the cabana in the middle of the party, so I fortunately avoided the mess. I'm fine too, thanks to your errand. Thank God. What about my first brother? He went to interrogate the criminals with the Crown Prince's Highness. I didn't really care where he went, but I asked him out of courtesy. I'm glad you're not hurt. Do you know how surprised this father was when I heard the news? The Duke gave me a steady answer and looked at me with a worried look. End of chapter 65.